Welcome to Grove of the Gods. I'm Morgan Hornman, and today I'm joined by Dottie the Psychic. Dottie is from West Virginia and has a lot going on out there, and we'd love to learn more from you. Hi, Dottie. Welcome to the show.
How are you
Uh,
doing?
if you could tell everybody a little bit about you, because we'll have information about you in the bio and the links, but this way, the people that can't read that right now will have an idea of what's going on.
Awesome. So I'm Dottie the Psychic. I am Charleston, West Virginia's premier psychic. Um, I do palms, cards, crystal ball. I read them all. Fortune teller extraordinaire. So I've gotten so used to working events, like the shtick just comes like this. But I've also got a lot of other things going on. I am also the president of the Metro Valley Pagan Pride. We just got our 501c status, so yes.
Yes, congratulations. Congratulations. You're on the road.
Yes, we are building a community that is for pagans, by pagans, but is also inclusive to anybody who's willing to come and stand with us. Like if you look here, I've got all my Rainbow Pride stuff on here because I personally am a non-binary person. My pronouns are they, them.
Right.
So I'm trying to help do my part to create that allyship because I don't think the pagan community cares, and I don't think the LGBT community knows we exist.
That's
So
legit. That's legit.
it's just is what it is. Like honestly, the pagan community is like, well, it's a whole lot easier to bring them over. They don't because the Rainbow Pride and Pagan Pride, as far as most pagans go, is hand in hand.
Right. There's a huge crossover between the two communities. And I know that as an organization, Indie Pagan Pride got a lot of support from Indie Pride when it was starting. And we co sponsored and had booths at each other's events. And we were there with tables and sharing information and cheering each other on through all those days. And it really, the model that they set is what Indie Pagan Pride and other pride organizations are based on. And co-opting that and expanding that back to make sure we're as inclusive as we can be is super important.
Right. And I tell you what, because it is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking that a certain subset of paganism is there. I guess there is certain groups that are racist,
Yeah.
and we are actively trying to break down that association because
Right.
at least my pagan community, which is a pretty big chunk of West Virginia, a lot of us are that intersection. We are that intersection. We can't be racist. Well, I mean, we can't be homophobic because I'm pansexual. We can't be transphobic. I'm non-binary. Like a lot of the cross section, it's there. But there's still a stigma. Like I've had friends look at me and says, "Oh, I get nervous around people who are wearing Thor's hammers." I'm like, I know so many Asatru heathens that and it breaks their heart because
Yeah.
a lot of them are also in that intersection. We don't,
Right.
you know,
That hammer does not mean that they're automatically a racist.
yeah,
There are some groups that use that symbol as a misappropriation of the ideals and the thoughts behind the
I
community,
absolutely
but
will
the
blow and
majority of
call
them aren't.
out my name. I don't care. I'm not gonna. I can tell you that those kind of people are not welcome in our pride. They're
Right.
not welcome in our
Right.
community. And I hate to say it, it's one of those things that I think somebody picked it up on the internet and just ran with it because I swear to God, I keep hearing about some asshole in the southern part of the state that's a huge racist, but nobody knows this person's name. Nobody knows where they are. Like the
Right.
and I know that I'm sure that there is a community down there because for every pagan you see, there are 10 up in the mountains that you don't. People with
Yeah.
jobs and lives that are not willing to lose what they've got.
Yeah.
the generational pagans. You think about it, to be a generational pagan, this all seems very new and kind of silly to be expressing oneself in public, because one of the tenets of the old faith was to keep your mouth shut,
Yeah.
to keep silent. And we've reached a point where even the mountain witches are like, it's time to speak up and come together. So and honestly, I have put myself in a very distinct position, but if it were not for me, then somebody would have. The community is hungry for this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it needs a place to gather and a place for community. And that's why we worked so hard for so long to make sure Indie Pagan Pride Day happened. So, and we're going to continue.
Right. Because that's how we make change.
Exactly. You do things that you haven't done before to try something new.
Right.
So let's go into the whole interview thing. We'll do one of those starter questions. Candles instead of incense. We'll ask you about candles. What kind of candles do you prefer and why?
I prefer candles from Faye Clips. She's a good friend of mine who actually pours her own candles and incense. I like candles and incense. I use them in my personal practice. I don't necessarily use them when I'm going to do a cleansing in somebody else's space. I'll usually use a bell. Candles are a great energy source. They're temporary. They put off a measured amount of energy that is not yours. So tying magic to them, using them to feed ghosts to communicate, I think it's great practice. One of the ideas I've had since the inception of Dottie the Psychic on YouTube, that's my YouTube channel, Dottie the Psychic, was to do a video on some basic safety concerns.
Yeah.
Because I have seen people just like, anything that can go wrong with a candle can go wrong with a magical candle. Now just take that formula plus 2, because when you add magic into it, that flame goes from like this high to like that high.
Right.
So be extra safe, folks. Whatever you're doing with your magical stuff, be extra safe.
Quick question. What do you do with your stubs that are left over? When you do use candle magic, what do you do with the leftovers?
Oh my God, you know what? This happens every single time. Like, sometimes I don't like to litter, so I hate leaving them at the crossroads. I don't know. You can't just throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
First, I like to make sure that they're burnt all the way down. You know what? Candle stubs is a good question, because it seems like, number one, I think it partially depends on what I'm using the spell for.
Right.
Because, like, it's a positive thing. Sometimes I'll save them up and, like, try to make a new candle out of them.
Okay.
But if it's like a banishing thing, I hope that there's not much candle left, and those I'll throw in the trash. Like, if I'm using it for a banishing or something negative, I'll throw that crap in the trash, and because that's where, that almost adds a level of disrespect.
Right.
It's like, if I was burning a candle to get rid of my ex, I will take that. I'll throw that in the like a dumpster at a Pizza Hut or something real gross.
Okay. Right on.
But, like, if it's a positive one, I might actually add that to like a mojo bag, or this is something I have tried to do. I try to figure that out when I go into the spell. Like, okay, what am I doing with my leftovers? Because, if you're burning incense and candles and you have these rocks you're charging, that can all be part of one mojo bag.
Right.
You're not supposed to open that thing anyway. Who knows if you put wax in it?
Tell me about the environment where you're at and how being pagan is in the community, how out you can be, how people react to it. Are there very many shops there? Are there public events? What's going on?
Here's the thing, like, we really are on the verge of something, because we have pagan events. We are semi-open, but there's also still this very much this trying to protect ourselves because we know that our government and our neighbors don't like us. They don't
Right.
understand us enough to be against us. And we know that they're attacking a part of our community. There's been a lot of transphobic laws going through our legislation, and actually, I'm hopefully going to do a video by the end of April, mid-April, um, that is going to use the footage that I've been gathering every time I go to the courthouse, and 4 or 5 times. I'm starting to lose count. Like it's getting fuzzy because I've been there so much, and
Right.
um, anytime that a group is attacked, there's also a pagan in that group being attacked. But they've been specifically going after the transgender community here, and they've done that through things like RIFRA, which is the Return of Religious Freedoms Act. No,
Oh, yeah. We had one of those get passed a few years ago here. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
on its face, it looks very nice. It looks like they're trying to actually do something nice and make it so that you can be more religiously open. But what they're doing is making it legal to discriminate against people based on your religion,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous.
Agreed. Agreed.
It genuinely is ridiculous. And we're in that splash zone. I'm directly affected because
Yeah.
I dress in men's clothing.
Yeah.
I've got friends that are directly affected because they're trans. But the pagan community is also directly affected by that rule. Every rule they try to pass against transgendered people is also affecting everybody else. And I think we all need to realize that, because if we don't gather together now for this group that they're picking on, you have to realize that they don't care to hit everybody else around them already. Pretty soon, all they're going to do when they think they've gotten this group under thumb, they're going to pivot to the next one. And
Father
that's
Niedermeyer's
yeah.
Father Niedermeyer's poem, or what he said about first they came
First
for
thing for
the
the communists.
homosexuals, and I didn't care because they weren't my kind. Then they came for, and it's a quote that I've had on almost every website I've had for every coven I run since the mid '90s. And
Right.
it's a very true point, and we forget that it's not necessarily all of a sudden thing that we have to wake up for and fight against immediately. It's a gradual thing. Well, they turn the tide and they set precedent where they can
Right.
execute those kind of ideas behind our back and with a stacked court. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's something that we have to make sure that we push back from the constant creeps, literally.
Literally, yes. The
Yeah.
slippery slope is not one of introducing pedophilia to the community. The slippery slope is one of hate. And we are on
Yep.
that slide right now. And I try not to. I don't know. There's so many points around the main point, but I don't want to take focus off the fact that
Yeah.
literally these laws were designed to try and outlaw transgendered people. They
Yeah.
literally said so in one of the bills they tried to get passed that got killed. Like they
Yeah.
killed the bill, thank God, because even they knew it was too early. But that's the
Yeah.
thing, they introduced it anyway. And
Right. There's a reason for that. It's to get the shock over.
right. So
That way, the
there's
second time they introduce it, it's not as big a rebellion because, well, we already found out they were doing this. We beat it, so it's not as big a deal. So,
right.
and
So
that's not true. We need to mount more of a resistance when that happens.
yes, exactly. Here's the
Yeah.
thing that people also don't see. They see that the more we point out, well, the more that the general population associates pedophilia with the transgender community, the more they are going to attack that community, but also the more they're going to ignore real pedophiles.
Right, right. Well, and they're doing it on a non factually based basis. So there's no way to confront what they're saying because there's no actual data that they're being used. They're merely using emotional talking points to get people hyped up and go, they're different, they're bad. And that's their starting point. The entire attack is against different. And that's what it comes down to. Anything that's different is what's being attacked.
I absolutely 100% agree. And and on that same note, like the pagan community in many ways is literally the stuff that Christian nightmares are made of.
We're trying. We're trying.
We are though, actively. Like, I've made contacts with people from this temple of the Satanic Temple.
Yeah.
The STS. STS.
Yeah.
Like, one of my best friends is a trans man who is a representative of the TST.
Yeah.
One of the finest human beings I know in my life. I know plenty of good Christians too, and so I usually try not, like, when people are actively pushing us away, I try to remember that these are not Christians because they are not following the tenets of their faith. They are heretics. They are warping the word of their own God to try and manipulate the masses and advance themselves politically and economically. They don't care about trans people. They
make themselves look like victims.
Right. And it is only to be disgusted to build up that persecution complex. That is heresy. They are heretics. They are not Christians. I know good Christians. A good Christian will give you the shirt off their back. Good Christians open food pantries. Good Christians are the first people to stop and help. And they show up at the events. I started Metro Valley Pagan Pride. It was not my idea. It was like, somebody needs to step up and do this kind of deal. It was not something that I had planned. It was a hole I saw and I tried to help fill. Because it started out as Charleston area Pagan Pride, and it was started by a guy named Colin. And God love him, man. He was almost anti-Christian, which is funny because his wife is very much Christian and ran our kids' activities. And when we had the most vile protesters show up to the first Charleston area Pagan Pride, she sat with those children, those scared children, and kept them calm all day. And I've only ever seen that woman angry once. But she actually left the corner and went over to try and address these people. And we had to talk her down. I'm like, this sweet, wonderful. I've never seen her that angry before, and I have never seen her that angry again. I never want to see that again.
I can understand that. So there's PPD. Are there any other events or organizations out there that you're working with that you'd like to talk about and promote a little bit?
Okay, so actually we've got quite a few things going on. If you're in West Virginia, you're around West Virginia, keep an eye on the Facebook.
Same.
We have, because we're just now getting organized, we've got a lot of really strong people who have got all these pieces. And it's my job to try to figure out how they all work together. And I'm still in that phase where I'm getting all the people to be willing to work together. And I haven't figured out how it all works yet. So we've got a lady, Lady Gwen. She's also a fellow psychic. And she runs two major things for West Virginia. She has West Virginia pagan calendar, where a lot of the events get posted. And you can find that on Facebook. It's a Facebook group.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a pagan event in West Virginia Pagan Calendar is the place to go. That's like the number one spot.
Yeah.
She's also head of, she runs two events. I run an event. We got a couple other people trying to get events started. A lot of it's coming out of people's individual pockets. We've got Crystal Kingdom in St. Albans. I think that's in July. She's doing, Gwen is doing Beltane in May. and Central West Virginia Pagan Pride in August. Um, my crazy ass is trying to head Metro Valley Pagan Pride in September 16th. Valley Park in Hurricane, West
Okay.
Virginia. Come check it out.
Absolutely. If I
Yeah,
can do it, I will.
right. I think we've got a witches ball and a psychic fair that have been talked about, but I haven't seen any formal announcements, so you have to keep your eye out for that.
Awesome. Awesome. That's fantastic to hear. There's so much going on. That's really exciting. It's been hard for a lot of communities to recover from COVID, and hearing that things are starting to gain traction and grow is amazing. And I'm really excited for you guys.
Dream small, live small.
Well, that's kind of what I think, but yeah.
You don't
So
end up
we're all
walking in your own office with nothing to show for it.
we're all on a path of growth and change. Tell me about how you arrived where you are, how you got on your path, how and just how you've developed.
See, now that is a long, hard story. How far
We're
back
here for it.
in the beginning?
There was light. Oh wait.
When I was just a ye dot. So I have been fortunate enough to have really genuinely supportive parents, and when I was 13, one of my dad's friends, I've always been raised around an eclectic group of people.
Okay.
At 13, I really wasn't thinking about religion. We were technically a Christian family. Mom was a Methodist. Mom was Christian. Dad used to, but this was before heathen became an actual religious path, but he called himself a non-orthodox, non-denominational, unorthodox heathen.
Nice. Nice.
So that'd be an agnostic now. But back then, heathen just meant wild child, you know?
Yeah.
And anyway, so that's the kind of environment I grew up in. When I was 13, one of their friends just gave me all these packs of cards, and they were not all tarot cards. I've still got 2 decks. One of them is my favorite tarot deck, and one of them is like this zodiac. It makes a sentence. It's really cool. I need to find it because sometimes it hides from me. I'm like, I know you'll come back, but it makes me nervous when you go away.
Right.
But so there's that, and then like that freaked Dad out. So he took up all my cards and he put them in his closet. But he would do things. It's funny. He had a problem with the cards, but this whole time, I think he was just like, he told me that he thought the cards were a crutch. But he would take me out into nature and show me these wild things. Like, if you see crows mean this. And I have an absolute love of crows because that was my daddy's bird. And he knew that if we saw crows on the way to an event, then we were going to make money because he was selling swords out of the back of his van.
Oh, cool.
This is the environment I grew up in. And then like when I was turned 16, I demanded my cards back, told my parents I was going to be a witch. Dad says, no, you're not. I'm like, and to this day, I still don't know if he was trying to forbade it or if he was trying to reassure me or if he was just invalidating that. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I'm like, because it didn't do any of those things. Whatever it was trying to accomplish didn't work. Sorry, Dad, you were wrong. I am a witch.
That's hilarious.
She's a witch.
Right on. So, tell me about how you view the world, how it all interacts, how your soul plays its role in all of the interactions.
Honestly, you know what? I'm trying to avoid building a cult, so I try not to pinpoint exactly what I believe. Also, there's no real name for it. I think, number one, it doesn't necessarily matter what we believe as individuals. In the end, we are all connected. But I think that we are like, I'm somewhere between like Jung and chaos magic and Western occultism, somewhere over there. Because I believe that we are the living, thinking edge of God. I think that God is comprised of many pieces, dimensions, things like that. There's the all. There's nothing outside of the all except for the void. There's the chaos and the void. And the chaos is its only purpose is to fill the void. The only purpose of the void is to be filled by chaos. And so we can create whatever we want. That is the sole purpose of existence, is to
Yeah.
create. And that's why we have beautiful things. That is why we have terrible things. There's no inherent morality to existence. It is the us. It is the duty of an individual to maintain their own sanity and build their own morality.
Okay.
Can borrow pieces from everybody. But anytime that one person's voice becomes so much louder than everybody else's, that voice will be warped, and eventually it's going to end up being part of a hierarchical system.
Okay.
So it's only when we kind of come to God on our own individual basis, is when we see God as not being some great and terrible thing, but being our friend, that we're able to really stop and think and create the kind of reality we want, because we are always creating a reality, whether we like it or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean,
And our thoughts create that reality because it aligns us to the vibrations of our thoughts with what we're telling the universe we want, and it just kind of amplifies from there.
you see, this is one of those things, like changing the locus of control in your life is something that everybody who's been through a bad situation has had to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, a lot of people come to paganism because they don't believe in Christianity, but they need help going through addiction and things like that. And, refocusing that locus of control is very, very important. I know that I don't have control over the whole world. I have this much control, and I'm
Right.
pointing in one direction. And when I work it the right way, I can get more control, and I can get other people to see that they can also push in a positive direction.
Right.
I am a single perspective. I am a single star in a sky.
Exactly. You're one molecule of a swirl.
Right. I
I
am a
get
whole
it.
ass galaxy, baby.
So, what spirits, deities, avatars, etc., do you work with or connect with?
Okay, you're gonna get a cultural appropriation tag for this, but I'm sorry. I
Yeah, probably. It's
yeah,
okay.
I still work. I refuse to turn on my gods because other people have a problem with me being white. I follow Kali Ma. She is a Hindu
Okay.
goddess. I know that I, culturally speaking, have no right to follow her, but she showed up to me. She came to me in a dream like 3 times. I'm like, and
Right.
there have been times where she has brought me such strength, and she's been a friend to me. My gods are my friends. My pantheon is full of gods that showed up.
Right.
So I have a particular love for Kali Ma and Hecate, because
Okay.
chaos and death. I don't know. It wasn't because it was cute. It was because I was used to be a long-term care nurse, and that is a sum up of that experience. Chaos and death. That does make me a little nuts. I'm completely crazy. Don't follow me. I don't know where I'm going. Uh, but also, there was one time, Buddha. People don't think about it, but Buddha is a great orator and a
Yeah.
traveler, and he has to, you got to bring in money to travel like that. So he is a great
Right.
person for economic balance.
Yeah.
Um, Jesus is in my pantheon because he was my mother's god, and
Okay.
he's a great orator and a passionate caregiver. You know, he's willing to, put himself in every bit of danger, willing to self-sacrifice for a greater cause. And it's also a morality lesson about how you can throw yourself against a wall for the good of all mankind, but they're probably able to scrape you off and sell you as a hamburger.
Yeah, pretty much. So, what kind of things do you do to connect with those deities? How do you connect with Hecate or Kalima?
Honestly, like sometimes I go into full ritual. I used to, there was a while there where I did like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, for like a year. And I definitely, especially Hecate, a lot of the divination work I do, I kind of will sit there and talk to her. Um, but most, you'll see me talking to myself. I just talk to myself like a crazy person. It's like they can't see the other half of that conversation, but like I talk to the gods the way I talk to you.
Right.
It's a whole lot different delivery. Like the phone is different, but the conversation's the same. It's kind of the
I
same
understand.
relationship, you know?
I there's a voice inside of my head that talks back that's not my voice.
Right. And as long as it's telling me to do nice things and not being a hateful, they can stay. If they get hateful, they get kicked out like anybody else. I tell you what, going through. So you asked me about my origin story a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but I didn't tell you about like the decade of darkness. Um,
Well, fill us in because everybody goes through their own shadow getting to where they are. And that's
right.
part of what I want to learn about are the people's journeys so other people can see things to relate to and or avoid or learn lessons from.
The long night of the soul, was it something desert? The spiritual desert period, the desert period. That's what I think it was called because I started watching. I got married when I was young, not too young. I was like 23, but honestly, like I was so enthralled with this guy who ended up being just incompatible. It was a toxic relationship. It got very toxic.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I nearly killed myself. I actually put a gun to my head. It's been a week in a mental facility
Yeah.
because of it. You know, I like to lovingly call it the nut bin because it wasn't like a whole nut house. It was just one floor. Like I know people probably got a problem with it, but was it? No, but I've started calling my grippy sock vacation instead because that's a little bit less.
That's actually a very common term.
Yes. So yeah, I got to go on a grippy sock vacation for a week because it drove me to put a gun to my head, and I had actually started the process. Y'all, let me tell you, be careful what you cast for.
Yeah.
This is my teaching people to be careful what they cast for because I do think I am better off for it. But also, um, so I was a long term care nurse and I had started breaking down because you can only take so much as an individual. And
Yeah.
I had quit one job. I'd gone to work for a larger hospital that had multiple floors. And so I knew that I was not doing well. I was not able to keep up with the work that I took pride in my work and I wasn't able to do it anymore because I was mentally
Yeah.
breaking down. There I was unable to maintain anymore. Physically,
Right.
mentally unable to maintain. And so I lit a candle to Mercury, who is not a health god. So you all know he's not a healing god. He is a commerce god. He is a messenger god. He's not a healer. FYI. He, I lit a candle to Mercury to get to work on the psych floor, but that's not how I worded it. I said I wanted to go to the psych ward. And so I got to go on a groupie sock vacation. I'm
All
like,
right.
okay, there's proof that this shit's real and that I need to be more careful with it.
You got to avoid the literal.
Right. And
You got to avoid the literal. You got to give them room for wiggle room. Otherwise, they're just stuck with one path, and that's just not good all the time.
when I reached that point, when everything got really dark, it was like that song, Maybe I'm Crazy,
Okay.
where you just like, you reach out and you can see the eternal void reaching in all directions. And you're like, hey, you know what? This ain't so bad. I
Right.
think I'll try Magnus for a while. Let's just be solid crazy and see where that goes. And I've been on that train Ever since.
It's easier to jump on the ride and enjoy the trip as long as you pay attention to doing the next right thing
Right. Yeah.
and trying to at least head a direction.
My daddy had he said when I was, because he was raised West Virginia Free Will Baptist. So he's
Okay.
like, when I was growing up, I had all these morals, and I watched them just fall away as I got older because it didn't make a whole lot of sense. So now I'm down to two, and those are the two I want to pass on to you and anybody. He said, be honest and be kind, which sounds like a very simple lesson. And it's sometimes easier to be honest and kind to somebody else, but you also have to be honest and kind to yourself. Those also, and this is kind of what got me back into magic, because magic has always been a part of my life, but when I was in that dark place, it was almost like somebody put a veil between me and my magic. It got bad. My ex was an energy vampire, so it was getting drained off of me. My hair turned colors and started falling out, the whole thing. Oh, yeah, went through. I was cursed. We were cursed. My ex and I were both like cursed, like together, and that's a whole nother story. But finding out that those are also the pillars of Western occultism. You know, the pillars of severity and the pillars of mercy, the honesty and kindness. And that blew my mind, and that's what got me back into practicing and looking and seeking and being okay to dip my toe into, you know, finding out what the inside of my own skull was capable of, you know?
Right.
What can I do with my life? This life I lived before. Because when you reach a dark point where you're ready to just not, like, if you reach the point where you're in so much pain that you're willing to die to escape it, then that life that you lived before is over. And
Yes.
I'm not going to judge anybody for choosing a permanent solution to a temporary problem, because it's not like you don't go to hell. But it's more fun to live for spite. You know, you're not going back to where you were.
I'm familiar. I'm very familiar.
Yeah. Hold on to your pulse, dear. We're going to go in a whole new direction.
Right.
And that's what I want to... Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that's kind of the root of everything that I have been trying to do. And it's funny because I've gone through, it's not been just one major transformation. It is a constant series of becoming this person, this constant development of self. And like, I like to tell people, like, occultism self-help for weirdos, and I just took it way too far.
Well, and the shadow work really is kind of that. And all of that being said, what would you give as your advice to people that are just now starting on their path? What would you suggest they do to help them deal with those dark nights of the soul and start their journey?
Hold on to your morality, not your religion. That's different.
Okay.
But hold on to the piece of yourself that knows that this is right and that is wrong. Be willing to move that around and understand that it comes from a place of sympathy for others and your own barriers. Sometimes you got to move those things around, and moving your barriers is hard. Changing how you feel and think intentionally is difficult, but you are capable of doing it. And you have to decide what person you are. Dottie the Psychic is a character I made up in my mind when I was in a very dark place, but I have gradually, intentionally moved towards being the person I am. I have become intentionally. So remember that. Become intentionally.
Right on.
That's some deep shit, man. I'll have to write that up. Putting that on a t-shirt and selling it.
But it's important to think about. And I mean, in my own channel, I talk extensively about intent and manifesting and letting go of control and all of the things that you've been talking about. And
Right.
it's all about intentionality. It's all about making sure that you pay attention to your own morality, pay attention to your own progress, pay attention to your own reactions and why you're doing things, why you're not doing things. And it all helps you learn about yourself and grow.
And I'm not going to sit here and be, like, I'm not going to sit here and cast judgment or be holier than thou. That you can't, you get old and wise by being young and dumb first.
True story. I've done that a lot.
I'm just saying, we've all been there. Like,
I get it.
I came out perfect. If I was perfect, I wouldn't be here. But, like, I'm a lot more likely to get burnt at the stake than nailed to a plank.
There is that. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Ugh.
Allergies and COPD. It makes extended talking hot sometimes. So, are you a writer? Are you working on publishing anything? Do you share any of that?
I am not a writer yet. I am
Okay.
eventually, someday in the vague and distant future, going to put out my memoirs. I've already got the name picked out.
Okay.
Diaries of a Discount Psychic. But, okay, so for active projects, for something that you could... I'm a YouTuber. I've got long-form videos. I've got one on scammers. I've got one on tessiomancy. I did one on osteomancy that I really want to redo because it's old now and, like, it's pitiful. It's pitiful compared to what I know I'm capable of now. But, like, it was, like, I was so proud of it when I did it, and I'm still proud of it because I put all this research into it. But I'm actively working on making a video out of all the footage I've gotten from going through our legislative process. I'm going to do some interviews with some of the trans community and some of the pagan community to make a big video about calling the eye, which is a concept that I've heard about. When you call the eye on somebody else, you're also calling the eye on yourself. So that's, so there's always a lesson to be learned and some entertainment to be had. I still love my tessiomancy video. Like, that was my highest art. I spent too much money on costuming, and it still looks like a backyard job. I'm working on it. Eventually, I'm going to be pro level. I have all the art for a deck done, and I'm still working on the book that goes with it, which was way more than I thought it was going to be. It's a matter of sitting down and doing it. Like, I can probably whip out a meaning for a card in about an hour. Just that little bit, but I got to get it nice, and my brain don't work so good. I would love to work on some more of those bigger projects. I'm really thinking about setting up a class on tessiomancy because there were a lot of concepts I put in that video that I think I could really break down way further. Like the whole concept of it being a Rorschach test or the connectiveness with the community,
Right on.
Someday I want to do a cardiomancy video. I've already got I've got all these video ideas that I have just tucked away. I've got another death video I want to do. I've done 2 videos on death. One of them was the body, which is like all about body dispossession, pre-need, all those sort of things. And then the second one is about ghosts. And after I got the second one done, I didn't really have the energy to just jump in and do the next one because it's on grief. And then my mom died like 2 years ago almost, well, a year and a half ago. And I started the script then, and I pick it up when I can and I put it down. So it may not come out until after I die. Just Lord,
a gift from beyond.
I was like, I've spent money on this fucking outfit for it, though. Like, I've got a brand new veil for death. I'm working on this gigantic, like, stole cape thing. I've
Oh,
got like
neat, neat.
my ghost characters get an upgrade. Like I'm gonna make a full wedding dress for the ghost.
Very cool.
There's this whole
Yeah,
tradition of burying people in their finest. People got married and buried in their best clothes. Because that's
yeah.
what people had.
Right, right. So, tell me, for the guests at home, tell us, you call yourself Dottie the Psychic. We haven't really gotten into that part.
Oh,
If you could talk about how you found out you were a psychic. I mean, you got the cards, but you kind of get led along that road, and
you
why you
know
call yourself the discount psychic.
the discount psychic partially because I learned to read. I got back in it. So going back to the dark days. And here's something I'll tell you: for all my people who are going through those dark days, it is okay to look back on those dark days and see some moments of true light, because if there wasn't something there, you would have known better than to stay.
Yeah.
So, back when I was married, before my divorce, best thing I ever did.
Same.
I was married to an alcoholic, and so I would be the only sober one at the bar on a Thursday night, and so I would started drawing. And
Yeah.
I'd already known I was psychic. Like when I was a kid, I saw ghosts. I'd always seen ghosts, heard things. I'm like, I'm always looking. There were moments throughout my entire life. Some of them big, some of them small. But like I can't remember a time before I saw the crazy. Some of my first memories are of seeing ghosts
Okay.
and communicating with dead people. So like it wasn't so much I found out as that I was told when I was 13, and I explored it, and I went to college one year and then screwed up my life and got married. We've
Familiar.
If the whole species could just stop screwing themselves over in their early 20s, we'd all be better off. So anyway, I ended up married with an alcoholic. I'm going to the bar on my days off. I was working night shift as a nurse, so on my nights off, we go to the bar because number one, it's the only thing open at that hour in the woods. And he's an alcoholic, so I didn't want to talk to anybody because they're all drunk and I'm sober because I got to drive our asses home. So I started asking the bartender for like a pen and paper so I could draw. And because this was before cell phones, folks. It wasn't before cell phones, but it's a bubble. Painted. Anyway, so after that, I'm like, you know what? It wouldn't be that hard. I waited like the next payday. I went to the dollar store and got like a blank pack of index cards, a box of crowns, a box of pens, and a thing to hold the cards in.
Okay.
And I took that to the bar so I'd have something to do. And like from the moment I started drawing, I think I bought 2 packs of the index cards because the idea was I was going to get 100 out of them. So I'd always keep a couple of blank cards in there so I'd have something to do. I'd start drawing on these cards. And, I've still got that deck actually. Let me show you. This is pretty cool. Show it in front of the camera. Ugh. I've held on to this poor thing because it's been through hell. It's old now. But so I started drawing these cards, and eventually I got up to the point where I had enough to start reading fortunes again, where people with these drunks would stumble up and sit down next to me and ask me what I'm doing. I was like, well, I'm drawing cards. Would you like to have your fortune told? And some of them would get freaked out and leave me alone, which is great. And some of them would
Right.
for a reading, which is also great. One way or another, I didn't have to have a full-blown conversation as a sober person with a drunk person that I don't like.
Right.
So that's kind of where it got started. That's where the Dottie the Psychic thing got started because, like, they were like, oh, are you the psychic? I'm like, yes. I'm Dottie the Psychic. Now, there's the first card I ever drew.
Oh, that's really cool.
Isn't it? I've actually I've gone through and I actually bought a, my nephew calls them tallops. That's another one.
Oh, that's really neat too.
They're
I
very
love that.
conceptual. Oh, this one's one of my favorite. Being starstruck.
Oh, nice. Nice. Wow, that's very nice.
Yeah, they're very conceptual. Like this is one of my favorites because this is somebody who is when the outcome and the intentions do not add up.
Right.
Like that could be somebody who does something very nice basically to get money, or somebody who tries to do something very nice and ends up completely screwing things up.
Yeah.
So I've drawn. That's actually a 100 card deck. The deck I'm putting out is only 50.
Okay.
Like I've got some extras in there. I got to find a publisher. That's the next thing I got to do. I need to finish my book and get it edited first, because
Right.
until all the work is done, I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. I want to find a professional publisher, like someplace like the Scarab, or I think there's another Peter Pan or Piper Printing, something like that. There's a couple of different ones I'm just trying to keep an eye on. I got to find a. You burn that bridge when we get to it.
I'm familiar. I'll figure it out when I get there. It's not something to concern myself with at the moment. I'll figure it out when I need it.
Right.
Google will help me when I need.
I'm telling you what, the universe has been setting these things up for me to complete in a certain order. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I have been strapped to a comet since I left my ex, because I basically we had a really bad argument one night, and I called my uncle, and I called my uncle for just marital advice. And I'm like, Uncle Tim, I'm just done. He says, I'll be there in an hour. I'm like, that was not the response I was looking for, but I guess I better go pack my shit.
Right. It apparently is bad enough from everybody else's point of view that you saying that was, yes, it's time for me to leave. And they're going, yes, we've been waiting.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So I guess it really is that bad, and it's time to go.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't realize how bad it was until I accidentally activated the phone tree that had been there for way too long.
Yep. It had been waiting for you to be ready to be freed from the abuse and the downward spiral that you're in. Perfect. That's amazing and awesome.
Amazing. And that has been something that I have lived a truly blessed life. Like, part of the reason I believe in what I believe in is because of what I've seen. Like, I love absurdism because it's the same thing in some ways. This is almost like the spiritual mirror of absurdism. Like, you might as well enjoy life, because ultimately it's only as meaningful as you make it. When I choose to make my life meaningful, choose to create this reality, I guess reality agrees with me and has put things in order. Like with Metro Valley Pagan Pride, it was downright creepy. Like, I'm like, I am being herded towards human sacrifice. This is kind of scary. But things just started falling in my lap.
No human sacrifice was performed, just for the YouTube censors.
Just me. Just what was left of my sanity, which wasn't much.
I'm familiar with this trip. It's a very short one, but I took it a lot faster than you would expect me to.
Something it doesn't take much to drive me crazy. It's more like a nice walk on a sunny day.
Right. It's short. I'll walk. Yeah.
Right.
What's the most important thing you've learned about yourself on this path so far?
I am entirely capable of the most concerning, impressive yet concerning thing is that I am completely capable of overriding my own fear and doing a thing and simply paying for it later. Believe it or not, this is funny, because I'll get on here and I will tell people I still have crippling social anxiety. And when I say crippling, I mean that there are times where I cease to be able to speak English. I don't pass out, thankfully, but I do hyperventilate. I will start holding my breath and breathing really fast and hard and panicking in public and just I will do things like I will run. I've caught myself doing things like running, and it's kind of funny because I have a lot of people that look at me like a rock. Because when I'm on, baby, I'm on, and I will get up and I will do my bit, shaking like a leaf. And then other times I'm like, I'm gonna pee and cry, be back in 5. We stay in mental health here because we're crazy.
Well, and a good self-care regimen helps you know when that's appropriate and helps you incorporate it and give yourself grace to be able to do that. And that's good.
Right. And here's another thing that I've learned, that sometimes improving your mental health is not the same as coddling it. Like, I cannot sit there and soak in my fears. I want to avoid being afraid because that is an unpleasant thing. But the best way for me to not be afraid anymore, to not have to feel that feeling, is to look the devil straight in the eye.
Agreed. And you got to face those fears.
You know,
and step up to them.
Nietzsche said that staring into the void is not the greatest fear. It is when the void stares, or the abyss stares back at you. But at this point, we're on a first name basis. We hang out on Thursdays. You know, we're trying to make time for that.
Right. Exactly. It's going to be fine.
Right. You got to make
what
time.
What are your
void or abyss? I think it's abyss. This is the word he used. But whatever. A rose by
what? Right on. What social interweb stuff would you recommend to other folks to follow and or watch? Or what books would you suggest folks read?
Well, of course, I'm always going to suggest my stuff. You can find more about me at DOTTIE, honestly, I have been watching so much BreadTube, I'm surprised I'm not sprouting muffins from my ears. I'm sorry, are you okay?
I've never heard of it. So bread, what's bread?
BreadTube. BreadTube it's YouTube's it's kind of an amalgamation of content producers and their following, but it's all centered around civil rights.
Okay.
It's all centered around social justice.
Right on.
So I've been watching that a lot, obsessively. It's part of the reason it is part of the reason I am where I am, is because I watched video after video of these analogies of things like the whole J.K. Rowling scandal. Like, why are people upset about that? I want to know. And it turns out what she said really wasn't that terrible. It really was. It was bad.
It's racist. And there's a lot of bad tropes. Yeah.
It was a snapshot of deep transphobic the whole ideology.
Yeah.
And
the anti-Semitism in the books is horrendous as well.
Here's the thing I want to say about this. I'm not defending her. I would not defend that woman. She is transphobic and fuck her. However, witches and Jews, everything anti-witch is also anti-Semitic because we were the stuff of nightmares. And so if you look long and hard enough at something terrible, you're going to find a trope that is associated with paganism or Jews.
Yeah.
Because it is so ingrained in our culture, especially like the hook nose thing. You will never see me put on one of those green witch's nose, but I'm not going to attack somebody for having a green witch's nose on because I know they're doing it because of an old trope about a witch. They're not in a place where they are going to understand that nose is an anti-Semitic trope.
Right.
And I don't think that just because somebody wears a green nose and a pointy hat doesn't mean they're going to try and set me on fire.
Right. Right.
They're not
And
going after the synagogue.
right. And I just, there are definite things that I see from the movies and the books that are kind of repulsive.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and no,
and that's
there's
all
no
I'm really going to
denying
say.
there. Like once
Yeah.
you see it,
Yeah.
you can't unsee it, and that's part of like
Right.
that's something we need to do. We need to be honest about what's going on. We need to be honest about like nothing is just fun.
Yeah.
And that's hard for people going through that awakening process. We've all go like here's something that the pagans and the trans community have in common. Why we have such a strong intersection. Why and why pagans are usually absolutely arms open to the pride community is because especially first generation pagans and trans people know what it's like to take a look around you and realize that what you have built your entire world on is bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That there is
And
something
if you,
really wrong.
right. And if you ever get a chance, I would highly suggest you watch the movie They Live
Uh-huh.
with Roddy Piper,
Mm,
and
I know
you'll
what you're
get a
talking
really good shot of that. The glasses. Put
about. Okay.
on the glasses. I don't want to put on the glasses. Put on the glasses. And once you put on the glasses, you can't operate without putting them back on because you want to see the reality of it. But yeah, it's a great movie to check out. They Live. I think it's early '90s with Roddy Piper.
You know
So
what? That is an. I love Roddy Piper. I love that movie. There's no middle
best,
ground in that movie. You either have to be hyper cerebral about it or just watch it for the thrill. Because if you try to find some middle ground, you're just going to piss yourself off.
absolutely, for anybody who watches it under my recommendation, know ahead of time that it has the best hand-to-hand fight scene ever filmed.
That
It is
is,
amazing.
I love that. Like
It
there's
is an
a whole
amazing fight scene, hand to hand. The choreography, half of it, they didn't realize that they were doing it while they did it, and it was just it's an amazing movie, and there's a lot to learn from it. So there's that. Um, Last question: what have I not covered that you would like to cover?
um. I never know because by the end of it, I don't know what I said in the beginning. That's why I repeat myself so often.
I
Enough
understand.
to
I
say it,
understand.
important enough to say twice. You can always check me out. You can find me on Google, Patreon, all over the place. It's Dottie the Psychic. But I also want to tell you, you can find Metro Valley Pagan Pride on Facebook. It's a public Facebook group. Feel free to join and find out what we're doing. We've got a disabilities group. We've got the Spiral Scouts. One of the girls got a hold of the actual, like, the national Spiral Scouts, um, which is basically a pagan Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts program.
Right.
Um, we're also, it's time to get to know your neighbors. We need to get to know our neighbors. Overlook the small aggressions. Try to meet people on a human level. That is very important now. We need
Yeah.
friends. We need allies. We need to talk to people. And there are a lot of people who have heard this hateful rhetoric and have seen videos and all of the worst of humanity and they've been told that that was us. And we know it's not us, but they don't know that. They only
Right.
have what they've been told by an authority that they believe in more than themselves. And we have to help break down that dynamic, and we cannot do that through aggression. We have to meet
Right.
people where they are.
We have to talk in languages that other people
That
understand.
was heavy.
We have to use words they understand.
Oh
Yeah.
no! Did I lose you?
Nope, I'm still here.
Okay, I thought I lost you for a
I'm still
second. The
here.
camera's stuck on the. Of course, it picks the best the moment you're making the weird face. You blink or do something. That's when the computer freezes.
I understand. As far as I know, it kept taping, so well, I think we're going to be good. That's everything I've got for today. Um, I want to say thank you very much for coming on, Dottie.
I forgot one
What?
thing.
See,
Madam
this is why I
Tortuga.
wait. This is why I wait. Go for it.
Madam Tortuga's Lounge is my community building YouTube channel. That's where I do shameless self promotion twice a month. That would be that would be the second and fourth Monday of the month, which means Monday I am actually having I'm having Elliot. I cannot remember his last name to save my life, but he does a zine and he is a pagan in our local community with a very interesting story. So he's coming on Monday. So if you want to come check that out, see the best of West Virginia paganism on Madame Tortuga's Lounge.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. Excellent. So, one other thing I'd like to ask. You said, are you available for personal readings or is it only through video readings, or how do you do that?
If you I do for $25 for 15 minutes. I can do over the phone or over Zoom. If you want to meet me in person, I have an office in Charleston, West Virginia, and you can schedule a 30-minute reading for $45 or more. Like if you want to have like an hour, I also do parties and stuff. So you can get a hold of me through my website. I actually have my scheduling link on there.
Cool.
And that is DOTTIE, thepsychic.com.
Ding, ding, ding. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much, Dottie. I'm glad that I remembered that. And it's been a lot of fun talking with you. I look forward. I'm going to reach out to check back in when we get closer to Pagan Pride Day so I can see how things are going, get updates. I'd love to talk to you some more. And thank you very much for being on the show. For all of our viewers, thank you so much for watching. It's been great talking, and I hope you turn in for more. If you'd like to be interested, if you're interested in being on Grove of the Gods, hit our website or our Facebook page. Contact me through those, or you can find me at Morgan Hornman, all one word. And that's my other YouTube channel. And we can do this over video. We can do this in person here at Faywood Grove. There's all kinds of ways to set it up. So it's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. May the Lord and Lady be ever in your heart. Praise be to Pan. Peace and blessed be to all of y'all. Have an amazing day, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Safe travel and much profit to you.
Much profit.